is Janice Nadler, and I study human attitudes and social norms regarding the legal regulation of food production and animals. What led me down this path was the notion that what we eat and how we eat has been shaped by the food industry, but it's been shaped by the food industry in a way that's been largely invisible, in the sense that it's been kind of beneath the level of most people's conscious awareness. And so that has implications not only for what we eat and how we eat, but also the way we distance animals from the way that they are transformed into our food. One critical question for research is the ability to identify ways in which humans distance non-human animals from membership in our moral community. And I think we do that in a few ways. First of all, by a way called theory of mind. So we deny perhaps the ability of animals to have consciousness or to feel pain. And so this lack of cognitive ability or sentient ability allows us to think of animals as different and not members of our community. The second way that we exclude animals from membership in our moral community is to make categories of animals. So we have one category of animals that are perhaps members of our family, like companion animals, pets. We have another category that is given a separate name and a separate category, food animals. And so we feel like we can treat these categories very, very differently. So one is the object of inclusion, and one is the object of exclusion, simply because we've created these boundaries between them. The third way that we exclude animals from our moral community is that we adopt ways of what we call humane processing. So for example, banning cage eggs or banning gestation crates for pigs. And in doing that, while it seems beneficent, it actually denies animals moral agency. And it's designating ourselves as the deciders and animals as the objects. And again, it creates this distance between us and animals that allows us to ultimately keep them out of the moral community. One new idea that social psychologists are working on is this notion of emotional dissonance between, on the one hand, eating meat, which most people do, and on the other hand, having high regard for animals, caring about their welfare, caring about their suffering, which most people also do. So how do people grapple with this behavior of eating meat and this notion of having a regard for animals, both at the same time? What most people do is they continue to eat meat and they partition off this idea of having regard for animals. And our social systems and structures support this so that the regard we have for animals is kind of separated off on a daily basis. And so social psychologists are looking into ways to actually restore that emotional discomfort, that emotional dissonance, that contradiction between eating meat and having regard for animals. They're trying to figure out ways of bringing that to the fore again so that people start re-examining what exactly it is that they're doing when they consume meat. And so this involves research about what emotions are involved when we have regard for animals. So not only emotions like empathy, but negative emotions like disgust come into play when people are confronted with this contradiction or this emotional dissonance. And so some of the research is looking into how we kind of bring that natural contradiction out again. So some work that has been influential in my thinking are first the work of moral psychologists John Haidt and Jesse Graham. Second, the work of social psychologists Steve Laughlin and Jared Piazza. And third, the work of social psychologists Jennifer Eberhardt and Philip Goff on dehumanization and racism. In terms of the next biggest questions, I think there's tremendous potential in the idea of using moral emotions, especially emotions like disgust, that arise in reaction to perceived violations of sanctity and purity, that can spur really a popular rethinking of the role of animals in society and in the planet more broadly. In terms of who animals are to me and why I study them, as a social psychologist, I think it's interesting that we seem to assign animals to whatever role is useful in the context. So in one context, animals might be beloved members of the family. In another context, animals might have invisibility because of their role in industrial food production. In another context, animals might be simply the objects of things that are in the way. For example, when humans want to develop places that incur into animal habitats. So animals really play these different roles without our really recognizing that as such. And I think a greater awareness of those roles and how we're changing them to fit human needs might be the first step in having a more comprehensive understanding of the role of animals in society more generally.